I myself was sitting there at 22, 23 thinking I couldn't afford my own prices. And I had to come to that realization of, well, maybe I'm not my target market, and that's okay. It's okay to have a fair price on your work and understand that not everyone is going to be able to afford it at that time. But then they can aspire to maybe afford it further down the track, or maybe, in the next year or the year after. I'm not always going to be that person, but maybe someone else comes back around to me in a couple of years' time and says, look, I've been enjoying your work for the past 3 years. I've always wanted to have you as my photographer. I'm now in a position where are we able to work together? And we're live. G'day everyone, Mike Jerry here, and you are listening to My Creative Journey, Season 3, Episode number 9. Today is a very special episode. It's going to be a solo episode with me because I didn't have an interview lined up for this week's episode, and as any good podcaster does, they just do a solo episode. And I haven't done a solo episode for quite a long time, so I thought that it would be interesting to jump on here and just talk to you guys and explain a little bit about what I've been up to and what's been going on a little bit behind the scenes. I did a bit of a Q&A on Instagram through the week and asked you guys if you had any questions, and I'm going to be answering a few of those on this episode. A lot of them were photography related and very specific, so I'll probably be talking a bit more about those on Instagram, but I wanted to go through a few things in this episode about a little bit behind the scenes and what's been happening in my life and things that I've had sort of going on. I have the great privilege of being able to talk to so many different people on this podcast and speak to them about their creative journeys and what they've been going through and highs and lows in their business, that I thought I would jump on here. It's a good opportunity to sort of speak from the heart and come and talk to you guys, and hopefully this episode can be still insightful even though it is only just me. As I said, I didn't have a guest lined up for this week. I've got a few interviews next week, but I'm pretty determined to keep on these episodes coming out weekly. So I thought that I'd jump on for a solo episode. Bear with me as I try to run through this. I know I tried to record a solo episode at the start of season 2 when I first thought about bringing this podcast back. If you guys don't know, the whole first season of this podcast was just solo. So I've recorded 56 episodes of this podcast all by myself back in 2021 when it first started. And the idea about my creative journey was just a bit of a way to document my own creative journey. I then ended the podcast because I had so much else going on and just didn't have the time to keep up with it, and then brought it back in 2024 and decided to do interviews with other people. And in the start of that, I thought about recording a solo episode, and I actually recorded a whole episode solo where I was going to bring back the first episode as just a solo episode with me. And I struggled to get through 30 minutes of recording. And I know that the podcast episodes on this podcast have been like hour-long episodes, hour 20, and I have no problem holding that conversation with someone else now. And I think it's a really nice way to be able to hold space and answer and have that back and forth conversation is really nice. But as a solo episode, speaking for 30 minutes was very tough. So I didn't even contemplate trying to do an hour, and I scrapped that episode completely. I went to an interview. I had to scrap it, I think, 3 days before the podcast came out. I planned to put out that solo one, and then what ended up happening was my interview with Sam Cousins came out as season 2, episode number 1, where he interviewed me for his own project. I just said to him, hey, can I use that as the first episode for this podcast, bring it back? Because again, it was basically me talking about my own stuff, but in an interview sense, and I thought that would be a little bit better. So hopefully we can get into today's episode and we don't have too many troubles along the way. I said that I'd struggled to get someone else on for this week. It's just because I've had so much happening, and I think that you get lost in everything that's happening in your life and you forget that there's so many different aspects, and especially the work that I do, there's so many different avenues that I have gone down over the years, and I'm sure that, as a lot of creative people know, it's hard to pull yourself back from starting new creative things. And the podcast is one of the things for me that I do just because I really enjoy it. This is not something that earns me any income. I actually really lose money hosting this podcast. I've got an editor. I host it online. We go through a lot of back and forth on how to actually produce this podcast and upload it. And there's a lot of time spent in it as well. And it's not something that I do because I earn a lot of income from. It's just because I really enjoy it. And having these conversations is something that I really want to bring and be able to do. And I'm very blessed that I'm able to get some amazing guests on this podcast. But I've been struggling to organize people over the past couple of weeks just because I've had so many different things on. And I wanted to talk to you guys, I guess, a little bit about what some of those things are. The main thing that's been taking a lot of my attention away recently has been my photo editing course. And you guys may have seen on Instagram that I launched my photo editing course. I launched cohort 2 of my photo editing course about 3 weeks ago. I launched that. And so I'm 2 weeks into the course currently. It's a 4-week program and I'm 2 weeks in, 2 weeks to go. Enjoying that process so much and going back. It's a sort of a live teaching cohort where I'm going through and teaching people live about editing and editing their photos. And we've got 2 classes a week that I'm doing live, and then as well a Q&A on top of that, and a whole bunch of admin to do with that in the back end. And in the whole sort of launch process of that, it was a bit overwhelming. You guys may have heard, if you've been following the podcast for a while, back in season 2, I launched my photo academy early in season 2, sort of end of last year, where I launched my photo academy, and I thought that was going to be something that was this big all-encompassing thing where I was sort of teaching photography to people, and it was a really next step in my educational work as a photographer, sort of branching out outside of the work that I do as a photographer, branching out to do more online education, because that was something that I really wanted to do. And I sort of went, I think, a little bit too big in the beginning and trying to create this behemoth thing that was just going to be all-encompassing of everything that I do and everything that I could possibly teach under one sort of roof. Anyone that's interested, I went down the route of sort of making it a subscription where people could sign up at any time. They could cancel at any time and just come in. All the classes were there pre-recorded. They could come, jump in, do the work, and then hop back out when they were done if they wanted to. I think it was like $30 a month, and just allowing people to come in and come out as they really wanted to. And I was continuing to update content, and I was hopping in for like Q&As every week. And after the course of 2 months, 3 months, it became too overwhelming to the point where people were in there all at different stages, and I wasn't able to cater it as well as I thought that I would. I thought that I'd be able to keep up content and have everyone at a similar stage, but it quickly evolved into something where people were jumping in and just starting, and then they'd hop on the Q&As and ask questions about a class that I'd recorded 3 months ago, but now a lot of other students that were in there as well were up to a completely different stage, and it just became way too scrambled and way too hard to get on top of. Also, not to mention the fact that in that sort of subscription model, it was hard to maintain consistency with people being in the cohorts. Unless people continued to subscribe, you had to continually get new people in. And that was a lot of admin effort on the back end that it was just sort of taking away from other things that I could possibly do. And so I had to close that down to new enrollments and just kept it open to people that were in there. And I sort of workshopped that over the year and end of last year and at the start of this year, and thought about how could I bring that back? How could I make that something that was able to be really beneficial for people, but something that I also enjoyed, because I didn't want to create something that I personally didn't get anything out of it, didn't enjoy creating. It's not why we become creative people, I don't think, is to put products out in the world that we don't believe in, or to do things that we don't enjoy. A lot of us creatives start in this industry because it's something that we really enjoy, not necessarily because we want to get paid the most amount for it. And often when you're starting, it's hard to be paid probably what you're worth. So you've got to endure those first couple of years where you're probably grinding away and just doing the work for the love of it rather than the actual paycheck at the end of the day. And for me, I started to feel like that was going to become a little bit of a drag if I was going to continue on doing something that didn't really work for me, or that I didn't believe in, or I couldn't help people the best possible way. And then I had to keep doing a lot of this admin on the back end, when what I wanted to do was just hop in there and help all the students and help people understand photography on a more sort of deeper level. So I really had to strip it back, and I thought, well, what's the one thing that I would really love to teach on if I just could sort of streamline it into just one thing? And I thought about editing, because that was the one thing that I really love, and I love it a lot more than a lot of other people. And I think that's a unique strength, and something that I always tell people to lean into something that you really enjoy, because you'll always put more effort into it than other people that don't enjoy it as much. It's an easy way to stand out, is to do something that you enjoy, because for you, it isn't a hassle to have to turn up and talk about it all the time because you really enjoy it. Whereas for someone else, if they're just trying to do it to start a business or to earn income from it, but don't actually enjoy it or don't talk about it in their spare time, it's going to be very hard for them to continue to turn up on the same sort of basis that you are. So for me, that one thing was editing. And so I thought, let's just relaunch it and try to create it in something that I can actually be there with people. And how was I going to do that? Well, it was going to be turning up each week and teaching the classes live. And that was something that was super daunting to me, because the other one that I'd done at the end of last year was pre-recorded. I'd recorded sort of 12 to 15 hours worth of content. And I thought, well, I've got to scrap that. I've got to go back and sort of teach it live now. But I think in doing so, I thought in my head that was going to be able to help people. And spoiler, I think it has helped people. The people that have already gone through the cohort and are already 2 weeks in are getting a lot more out of it than just pre-recorded content. But I thought that was a way that I was able to bring a lot more to it. But it was definitely sort of nerve-wracking for me to think about going in there and teaching live, especially like there's so many things that can come up and sort of questions that can come up live that you wouldn't get pre-recorded. And I can definitely see why people release pre-recorded courses. It's definitely easier in some respects. There's definitely a lot more editing that goes into a pre-recorded course. The production value's got to be a lot higher than actually teaching live, because live you can just turn up and give the personality live and people can respond and talk to you. So that's the real value add, is being able to turn up live, ask questions live. Pre-recorded, obviously they get access to it forever, but you're not actually there. So there's that sort of removed sort of barrier from feeling like you can record it as many times as you want until you get it perfect. Hopefully you're actually scaling it down into just the most important bits and pieces, and you're not sort of over talking. I know people that have got courses out there that go for like 30, 40 hours. And I think really, like, for me, the sort of benefit of buying a course is that you're going to condense the information. And so there is obviously that part of it that is harder with a course, but being able to hide behind the wall of a course and just have it out there in the world and people can sign up anytime and you don't actually have to be involved, I can definitely see the allure to that. But for me, it was about, well, what am I going to enjoy the most? For me, I always enjoy getting that satisfaction of being able to actually help someone there in person and being able to see that change in real time. And I think for me, as much as pre-recorded is helpful, and they do, all my students get access to all the recordings from the classes, I was like, if I can turn up live and answer one person's question, I know for me, when I was first starting, if I could have asked one question to probably someone that I really looked up to, or to a photographer in the industry, I would have really loved that. So I had to go with that and sort of decide that was the route I was going to go down. Still though, definitely a nerve-wracking decision, but I decided to go and launch that. And over the past couple of weeks, over the few weeks before launching, there was a lot of sort of back and forth about how do I market this? How do I advertise it? And I was just like thinking, I was like, look, I've just got to put this out into the world. You've got to stop stressing. And I think that this is a big thing for a lot of people, is stressing over it being perfect. And this is definitely something that I did the first time around that held me back, is that I was stressing about it being perfect, and that got in the way of me sort of putting it out there. And actually teaching it live allowed me to step back from that, because I'm not able to perfect anything, right? Like I have to actually sell the thing before I present the thing. And so I can't have crafted this perfectly put together 8-hour course where I've sort of filmed and edited the whole thing in high production value, and then I'm going to go and actually sell it. I'm going to sell something and then go and actually turn up in a week, 2 weeks time and actually teach the course live. So it took a lot of that stress out, because I know the first time around, it took me 3 months, right? It took me 3 months to get the 12 to 15 hours worth of content. I did 10 classes, but that was broken down. Each class was like an hour and a half to 2 hours. So they were broken down into a lot of different chunks, and I'd recorded those over the course of, I think, like 4 or 5 days. I spent the whole day recording. Editing then took forever. I had to go back and sort of redo things, had to get overlays and examples that I was putting over the top. And so it took 3 months from starting it to actually end producing it. And I still didn't think it was up to the standard, because I'd gone through that whole process of every time I was editing myself and thought, oh, this isn't as good as it probably could be. Maybe I shouldn't charge as much. And maybe I shouldn't actually put this out there in the world. Maybe I should just go back and re-record this. And there was so much of that sort of my own perfectionism getting in the way of me just putting something out in the world and starting. No one was expecting me to have produced a whole course suite as if I'd been producing courses for the past 15 to sort of 20 years. No one was expecting this to be like a college degree. They were just expecting an online course from someone that they really admired. And for me, I was like, well, how can I remove that? It was like, oh, let's just teach this all in person, teach it all live as we go. Are there going to be mistakes? Of course there are, but that's the personal element. People are signing up to spend that time with me and to learn directly from me. If not, they can go and learn from someone else. And there are a bunch of other people out there in the world that teach this type of content. But for me, they're turning up for me. So how do I make it more about me, and how do I make it more uniquely me than any other way? We'll turn up live and have those conversations with people and sort of take people through the mistakes. If there's things that I do wrong, well, it just happens in the class. And then you sort of get that reverse satisfaction of them signing up before the classes even. So you've then got them saying, well, I'm going to come. I don't know what the classes are going to be, but I just trust you to do whatever you want to do with the classes. So that was I think allowed me to take a lot of weight off my shoulders. I was like, look, I can put something out there in the world, and if people want to be a part of it, they will sign up, and then we'll create it after they've already signed up. Of course, I had the whole idea. I'd pre-recorded that whole course last year, so it was just sort of reworking that into, well, how do I teach that in 8 classes, and how do I streamline that to make that work in 8 classes and sort of do it as we sort of teach live. But it took that perfectionism stress off my back, and I think for a lot of people, you have to remove that. You have to let go of the idea of things being perfect and be okay to take a chance on something. Be okay to take a chance on yourself. I think in this sort of day and age when there is so much information out there in the world that other people could go learn all of the stuff that I teach from someone else. Like there is nothing that I'm teaching that's brand new. There's nothing that anyone in the world is teaching that's brand new. Everything's been learnt from somewhere, and you can find that information somewhere. It's the thing that people are buying from you is you and your personality. So be comfortable to put yourself out there and just to do something weird, do something new. Don't be scared that it's going to be not perfect and people aren't going to enjoy it because of that. They're probably going to enjoy it more because it's not perfect, because it's not overly scripted, because it's not this super like polished thing. They've come there for your personality. They like what you do. And so no matter what that is in life, no matter what that is in your creative business, go out there and do something and be comfortable with people who are going to come along that ride as you learn and grow. And this is the next thing for me. It's like I'm now thinking about what am I going to do for the next course, and how do I iterate, and how do I make the next one improved on this one? Because as I said, I closed off enrollments to this course, and ever since I've started actually teaching the course and advertising that on Instagram, other people have come to me and said, I didn't get in the last one. How can I hop in again? Are you opening again soon? So then iterating on the next one and then using this last one as proof for the next one. I think you've got to build up slowly, and you've got to start somewhere. If you try to aim for here when you're first starting, you won't ever get there because you're too busy stressing over all these little things that are going to get you there. Why not just start here and we'll just build up to there, and everything can be a next little piece. It's hard to eat all this much at one time. How do you eat all this? Eat it in small chunks at a time. You can't eat a big thing off. You can't sort of bite off more than you can chew when you're first starting. And so start small and build your way up, but don't be scared to throw yourself into something completely new, because then the next time it's not going to be new to you. Once you try something, the next time it only just becomes easier. And how did I go with the course, and how did I go with the sort of signups and enrollments? Well, I got 10 times the income from enrollments on this course than I did on the one last time. Now, had I changed anything? Yes. I changed the price point, I think was the most significant thing that I changed. I was like, if I'm going to be teaching this sort of live, I'm going to be closing off enrollments. It's only going to be open I think it was open for 8 days. You could enroll, and then we started. So everyone started at the same time. I think I then changed the price. I was talking about before, it was a subscription. So the one that I did at the end of last year was a subscription that anyone could sign up for at any time. And I think it was charging $30 a month. For that, to hop in and sort of learn as much as you wanted to and then hop out. And I was continually adding things into the course all the time. And so that was that. I think on enrollments, I got like 30 people. And then slowly, I think the most it got to was like 45 people we had in there at one time. And then it slowly started to end off, and it got too many that people were jumping out and other people were jumping in, and the admin was becoming too much. So you can think about that, like 30 to 45 people. We're averaging like $1,200, $1,500 US a month in just that course, in that course material. Whereas when I did it this time, it was just sort of a one-off flat fee because we were just paying for people to sign up for the course for that one specific enrollment, and they were going to go through the course over the course of 4 weeks, 8 classes. They then get all the replays after the fact. And so I was like, well, what sort of price point? Again, pricing is so hard, and we're really just dragging these sort of numbers out of the air based on what we think is going to be a good price and what this is kind of worth in the market, working out how much time and effort it is. Like there was going to be 8 classes. I'm on the course for like 2 hours, 3 hours per class. There's a lot of planning beforehand. We're doing other things, doing other like Q&As, going back and forth and helping people. How much is that worth to each individual person, but then breaking it down in a class as well. So much involved. At the end of the day, I drew at a number of $300 for the entire course. Now, that was a hard thing for me to put a price on because I was like, look, I know this is important information, but I don't want to, and I've always had that thing of like, I don't want to push people away and have the price be out of people's price, like outprice people and not allow them to access this course material. But I think if I learned anything from last time, it was that I'd gone too small, and I'd gone at a very accessible price of like $30 per month to get in, and they got instant access to like 12 to 15 hours worth of course content. We were doing a call every Tuesday to get in there and be able to answer and be part of that community. And a lot of people still didn't take up that offer, and people were still skeptical about what that could possibly be for them. And so I just went, you know what, let's just try the other end. Like, what's the worst that could happen? What's the worst? Like, I could outprice people and I don't get anyone sign up. I could charge, $1,000 for this course and get 2 people sign up, and I've still earned more in that 1 month than I earned from the entire subscription one that I did last time, where I was earning $1,200 a month from that. If I got 2 people at $1,000 a month, I've already gone way above what I did before. What's the worst that could happen? And so I drew around that $300 mark. And I think in the first day I'd sold out 10 spots already at $300. So that was $3,000 in that one day. So we'd already guaranteed, like, I'd gone way above and beyond the previous cohort, and then it had just continued to do better and better over the next 8 days that we were enrolled. And having that closing period as well, it was so surprising. That last 12 hours, I got more people than I got in the first day join in that last 12 hours because of just that scarcity of that we are going to close, that there is no sort of 2 ways around this. I'm going to be turning up next Tuesday morning for a class, and if you're not in the call by then, you're not in the call. So it allowed me that bit of flexibility to actually say, well, this is when we're ending. And that helped me take that weight off my shoulders as well, because of course I'm just trying to be a nice person and allow people to actually come in. But if you don't get in by that first call, it's going to be very hard and you're not going to understand where we're up to. So then you're just going to have to hang on for the next one. And it gave me that sort of line in the sand that I could draw in my own mind and say, well, look, I'd love to help you, but I can't because we've now already started it. I don't want it to be unfair to everyone else that's already jumped in. So for me, I was just like, let's just throw it out there at a price that I think is fair for me and the work that I've done, but also isn't outpricing everyone, but I still think it's fair, and what's the worst that could happen anyway? And that was a real sort of ceiling for me that I'd broken in that first 12 hours, 24 hours of opening, when I'd already gone sort of 3 times what I did last time on the opening day. To think that was something that I could achieve. I think for me, I've always held myself back by, well, what's the price that I would have paid for this, or what could I afford, or what's the price that allows everyone to get in and sort of make this stuff accessible. And I think I had to sit back and say, well, look, I put so much out there in the world for free. I put so much educational content on Instagram, TikTok, on YouTube, wherever the case may be. I put a lot out there in the world. If people want all of that, that's always going to be free. And hopefully if people are starting, and I get a lot of messages from people, that stuff has been really helpful. And so for me, it was like, well, I've got to draw that and say, well, that's my free stuff, but here's something that I am going to pour my heart and soul into, and I'm going to be actually there with you and help you and run you through that. How do I price that? I have to be okay to outprice a couple of people. And I struggled this so much when I first started photography as well. When I first started photography, I was doing an hour photography sort of session with people. I was doing like family photography for an hour. I was charging $100, $150 for an hour of photography. And that's not just an hour, that's admin back and forth. That's editing time afterwards. That's everything that goes into, that's driving to the location, driving home, whatever it is, actually working for an hour, $150 sort of dollars for that, all the gear as well. wasn't really worth it, but I just didn't want to outprice people. I didn't want people to not be able to access my services. It was the same when I started wedding photography as well. I way undercharged myself for so long. And it was just uncomfortable to charge that much because I myself was sitting there at 22, 23 thinking I couldn't afford my own prices. And I had to come to that realization of, well, maybe I'm not my target market. Maybe, and that's okay. Maybe it's okay to price it a bit better and be a bit more aspirational for other people, because there is always going to be someone out there who will charge below what I'm charging. And that's okay, because you can go to that other person, and that's all right to not be that person that's constantly halving their prices or constantly having a discount or is constantly on sale. It's okay to have a fair price on your work and understand that not everyone is going to be able to afford it at that time. But then they can aspire to maybe afford it further down the track, or maybe, in the next year or the year after. I'm not always going to be that person, but maybe someone else comes back around to me in a couple of years' time and says, look, I've been enjoying your work for the past 3 years. I've always wanted to have you as my photographer. I'm now in a position where are we able to work together? And that was something that I had to come around and say, well, I think that's okay. And I know that it was so hard for me to say, and it still is, really. I still undercharge a lot of my stuff that I do, probably where I probably should be. I hear from a lot of other people in the industry saying you should be charging way more for this, and still I'm holding myself back. I know that there's that sort of imposed ceiling on myself and on my own work and what I think I'm okay to charge, because you've got to be comfortable to charge the price you're charging. If you don't feel like it's an okay price, if you think you're charging too much, and I've always said this, as people who genuinely care, there are people out there who just wouldn't care in the world what they charge and would be happy to take any amount from people, even if they don't think it's a good quality service. For us who do care, I think we always know if we're overcharging, we're not going to actually sell our services. And I've tried to sell products before at a high price, and I always come back and think, oh, I just don't feel confident at that price. And so I'm never going to actually sell work to people. Versus when I feel confident, I'm then more likely to advertise it. I'm then more likely to take the time. And on Instagram for this editing course, I posted a video every single day for like 8 days about the course. It probably did feel spammy to some people, but to me, I was like, I really believe in this and I don't want anyone to not get in this because they didn't hear about it. And then I still got a handful of messages afterwards being like, I didn't hear about this course. I just saw your video today. Can I still get in? And I had to turn people down. And that was hard. There's always going to be reasons why. And so I had to just put it all out there and say, I confidently believe in this price. And I did. And I knew what it could actually do and how much it could help people. And I think I broke a bit of my own glass ceiling there and thought, well, you know what? Like, this is actually able to work. And people do actually want to come through and hear me talk and hear me educate them in person. We're going to do it like live. It is something that people want. And that to me was amazing, to think that people were confident in me to turn up and put down money to say, I'm going to come up and listen to you talk. I think that was amazing and a big confidence boost for my own educational work, and to know that I'm sort of headed in the right direction with everything that I'm doing. So if I could give you guys any piece of advice, I think it's start before you feel like you're there, before you feel like you've got everything worked out, before you feel like it's perfect. I didn't know the smallest thing about how to teach a class live. I didn't know about like streaming. I'm at home, right? So this is all on the internet. I'm not in person. This is online, but still turning up like live, teaching classes, how to do the screen share, the best way to get people in a community. But I'm just learning as I go. And I sort of took things from the one that I did last year, and I definitely wouldn't have been able to do this one this year without all the learnings that I did last year. And I definitely started it before I was ever in a position to feel like I was comfortable to do that. Then I'm hopping into this next one, having sort of learnt all the things that I did from last time, but still throwing myself way out of my depth to turn up and do something. But now I've learnt so much already in this first 2 weeks that I'm now implementing as we go. Each class is an iteration on the one that came before it, and I'm learning from off the types of questions that I got from the first class, what to then do in the next class and what to do in the class after that. And then now I know a bit more about the types of people that are going to come into these courses, that I can then go and understand more about how do we evolve, how do we make the next one an improvement. I did a call the other day where I kind of got the time zone completely wrong for people, where I had a few people turn up, but I had a lot of people from a part of the world that I just didn't expect to get a lot of people from. And so the time zones, even though it worked for me, there's people all around the world. And so I'm now thinking about, well, what do I do for the next course? Do we change the time zone? Do I plan to have 2 different calls on the exact same day, but just at completely different time zones? Do I do the calls twice for people just to give people as much value as they possibly can? Or where are those best time zones? How do people respond? What are the types of questions that people have? I didn't know all this before I started, but now I've thrown myself in. I've learned all this, and now for the next one, I can then implement that. Again, one of the biggest things that I got out of it was when I first advertised it, people were asking questions that I knew I'd answered on my website. I'd had all the answers to every question, like what time the calls were on, how long does it run for, what all the classes are about. I still got people ask me all those questions. And so to me, that was like, well, I'm not advertising that enough. There isn't enough of that in my marketing material. And then if like one person has the question, I can guarantee 100 people have it, but they just haven't asked. And so had I not put it out there, I wouldn't have even realized that that was an issue, or just how I understood things isn't how other people understood things. So be comfortable to put something out there, because you'll learn and iterate on the next one. And just because the one that you do right now, it doesn't have to be your success. I think the really best thing that I always take, and I think I heard a quote, I've heard it from a few people, is that the business that you're successful at isn't the one that you have right now. It's because of the business that you have right now that you will be successful further down the line, because of the iterations that you have. You know, all the skills you're learning right now will help you take it into something else, help you move into that next chapter, and that will help you move into that next chapter. Do I think that I'll still be hosting an editing course in the next 10 years? No, probably not. But the skills that I'll learn through hosting this will then let me do something else. The skills I learn hosting this podcast will help me do something else. The skills I've learned being a photographer will help me grow that and become something else. And it's already starting to grow, because I've been comfortable to put myself out there before I thought that I was prepared, because I don't think any of us ever feel like we're prepared to put ourselves out there. It's always a scary journey, and I don't know about you guys, but I always hold myself back. I'm always my biggest critic, holding myself back on everything that I do, always telling myself that I'm not where I need to be. But I always turn around and think I'm way ahead of where I was this time last year. And so I can always help that person that's still back there where I was this time last year. And so you've got to get out of your own head in that sort of sense, because you'll always hold yourself back. And I know that so many people are at a stage that are far beyond where I'm at, but have held themselves back by this idea that they're not prepared, that they're not where they need to be, when they well and truly are. And if they understood by just putting themselves out there that they're going to be okay, they would go and comfortably be okay and be confident to do what they do. They just need to have that little bit of a push at the start. A really big question that I get all the time with educational content is like, how did you know that you'd be ready to actually teach people? It's like, I knew because I'd learned things that I didn't know a few years ago. And so I can teach people that were back there. I don't get people that come into my courses that have been photographers for 10 to 15 years because they're already ahead of me. They're not my audience, right? People who are just starting are my audience. People that don't know as much as I do, or people that are where I was 3 to 5 years ago, they're my audience, right? So I'm not scared that someone comes into my course and is like, look, I didn't actually get anything out of this. I already understood all this. I thought this was going to be much more, because they already know that, right? And I don't get those people in. And if I do, I'm happy to be honest with them and say, oh, look, if you didn't get anything from this, totally fine. And more often than not, they're happy with that because I've just been honest with them and they understand what it's like, right? I'm not attracting those types of people. And I think it's a pushback for a lot of people, scared to start because they don't think that they're in a position to start. But hang on, the people you're helping are miles behind you, and you can always help them come up to where you are. You're not helping people who are ahead of you. So it doesn't matter where you think you are in comparison to other people in your industry. The people you surround yourself by aren't your audience. The people that you sort of work with, the people that you have on Instagram that you sort of aspire to be, they're not your audience. Who knows? Eventually they could be, but they're not going to be right now. And so again, with the products and services, building those up over time, your audience builds up as you continue to grow over time. And so don't feel scared to start because you don't think you're where you need to be. There's always someone that you could help who's not in the position where you are right now, who is dreaming of being where you are right now. And I think that that's such an empowering thing to think about, because for me, it held me back for so long and not thinking that I had all the skills. And I still don't. I still have a look at people online and think they know much more than me, and I just wish I knew what they knew, and I wish I could be the photographer that they are, or I wish I could be the creative person that they are, or I wish I could be the podcast host that they are. But they're not my audience, and that's okay. How about we change gears a little bit and talk a little bit about a recent project that I did with Nikon Australia. You guys may have seen this week, I was working on a product launch video with Nikon Australia for the new Nikon Z5 II. I'm not going to go into it here. This isn't an ad about the camera, but just more about the experience and what that sort of was. I've been working with Nikon Australia for the past sort of year and a bit now. I've been working with them on Instagram content, on content for TikTok, on sort of short form content. And they approached me about 2 weeks ago for the launch of this new camera. And they wanted me to come on board and sort of use my style to educate my audience and speak about it and use all the things that I do to sort of come along and help them with this new product launch. And that for me was really big. I've done a couple of these sort of launch videos. Well, not sort of launch videos. I've worked on new products before, but never done a launch video. So I've done a few product NDAs before where there's a new product coming out, like a new camera or a new lens, and they want me to make a video about it, but it's not going to be the launch video for the camera. Whereas for this particular instance, they wanted me to make the actual launch video that they were going to be posting on their Instagram account to actually sort of announce the launch of the video. And, I think when you first get that idea, you're like, well, a new product's coming out. They want me to come and be the launch. They want me to do the launch video. That must mean that they want me to record this high quality video about the camera, about all the things it can do, and sort of produce like a commercial about it. But it's really weird in the day and age that we're in right now, where brands are coming to me and other people in the industry about like, no, I want you to use your style and I want you to be you, but incorporate our product into that. And I think it's so weird that the position that we're in right now, and it's really, it's beautiful, to be honest, because people are allowed to be themselves and just do what they do. I'm not a commercial video producer, but they've come to me to create an advertisement basically for a product, just using my own style, just using the things that I do every single day, day in, day out. And I think it really speaks to the importance of having a personal brand and the importance of what you do and how you brand yourself and the way that you interact with your audience. I love that these guys can see how much my audience sort of means to me and how strong of a community we have here, because I think it's so important to be able to present that to someone else and say, look, this is what I can offer you. I may not be able to shoot the most high quality commercial ever, but anyone can do that. AI is coming quickly to sort of take that job, and we've already seen that happening. But the personality side of it, that's never going away. And so I talk to people all the time about put more personality into your content. On Instagram, people want to know who you are. Like, anyone can take a great photo. Anyone can draw great art. It's the personality behind it and the story behind it that's so important, and how you can tell stories is never going to be something that's going to be taken away by other people. Your story is always uniquely you. And so being able to tell that, I think, is so important. And so to have a brand come to me and say, we just wanted you to do you. And if you guys haven't seen that video, go over to my Instagram and check that out, because it was something that I was super proud of. And I was sort of stressing back and forth. I was like, look, how do I talk about this product? Like, I'm not someone that does product reviews, so I don't want it to come across as a review, but I still want it to be sort of educational about the review, and I still want it to be in my style of Instagram content. And I don't want it to be like a high quality sort of commercial product, but I still want it to be me and to be instantly recognizable. And I went back and forth for a couple of weeks there, thinking about, well, how can I make the video? Like, what sort of question can I ask, and how can we make it entertaining for people, but also, to be a good quality that they're going to come back to me and say, well, we want that again. Because I don't want to just make it something all about me where they're, cool for my audience, but they're not going to get anything out of it either. So you've got to sort of walk that line. And to me, it was so rewarding when it came out that people from my audience went across and still engaged with it as if it was one of my normal pieces of content, that it still felt organic, that I still was able to pull that off and be in that space and sort of walk those two lines between, I'm not someone that loves to really heavily promote brands, but I do talk about things that I really enjoy. And I definitely enjoy these cameras, and this was something that was really big to me, and I think my audience could see that. And so for them to come along, for everyone to be there as a part of that journey, that for me was something that was really huge, but also just for my work and my brand to be recognized in that sort of way and the impact that we've had, I think that was really incredible. And for me, that was a big project that I've, again, been working on the past couple of weeks, again, while we're here having this sort of solo episode, because I'd been working on that as well as my course. At the time, they sort of came to me and said, hey, have you got time to work on this project. We'd love you to come on, but we can't sort of tell you what it is. That's the sort of world of NDA work where you don't know what the product is. If anyone doesn't know what an NDA is, it's a non-disclosure agreement. So you disclose that you have to sort of sign that you're not going to disclose anything about it before you even sort of know anything about it. And so they were like, have you got time for this project? And I was like, yeah, I guess. I guess if it's from you guys, like, happy to work with them before. As I said, I've done a few videos from them before, others that I've done sort of 3 months before they've even actually come out. And so I get to the point, I'm like, when did I create that video? And I'm like, oh yeah, that was the one I made in October last year and it only just came out. But thinking about, like, they were like, no, this is urgent. This one has to come out. And I'm like, oh, if it's an NDA product, if it means it's something that hasn't been released yet. That's always exciting to talk about. Working with Nikon's always great because they allow me to have a lot of creative freedom. You know, like, they don't have any oversight on the script. This particular one was probably one where I had to get the details right of what was in the camera. I'm talking about a specific specifications of a camera. I had to get those all correct. So they wanted to look at that, but there was no oversight of how it had to be scripted. I could have as many like jokes in there as I wanted to, the back and forth conversation. I've got to do all that work, and I don't even have the sort of camera yet. I sort of got the camera 1 week before it came out to have a look at it and sort of record the video and to do all my examples to actually get it in the video. Whole lot of work that goes into that. But then you don't even have, like, you're not even allowed to talk to anyone about it yet because no one else has the camera. You can't talk to them and ask questions about how do you feel about this camera, because I can't talk to anyone about it. And so I can't even know where I'm at or what I'm feeling or be able to get a good sense on if this thing's right or wrong. Like, if there's an error on the camera, I can't talk to anyone apart from them about what's actually going on with the camera. I can't like Google things if I'm unsure what this spec is. I just have to understand it completely or ask them for an explainer because it's not out online yet. I ran into a bit of an issue where I was testing the camera, and I already knew this would be the case, but I was going out and doing a bit of astrophotography, and I wanted to come home and edit the images, but I can't pull up the sort of, I couldn't open the sort of raw files in my editor because the sort of the back end, how to open those raw files isn't out yet because the brand hasn't released that sort of version of raw file yet because they haven't released the product yet. And if they've had that version of raw file out yet, then that would spark off, the NDA, and other people would become aware that this is all going to happen. So it's all got to be hush hush, and trying to do all that was hard. It's like a bunch of different things, but again, super, super exciting to be involved in a project like that. And I think it's one of those things of like delayed gratification of actually when it comes out, it's really exciting to work on the project. And then you sort of see everyone else who's worked on it as well, because you don't know when you're going through it who's worked on it from here in Australia, but from other parts of the world as well. You see other people, other sort of creatives, other photographers working on these projects with these new cameras, and like, oh, I love what you did with that sort of, you probably had the same sort of brief that I did, and I love what you did with it. And it's super exciting to be in that field, and it's definitely something that's way outside where I first started in photography. And I said this on Instagram the other day that it was, so I'm really so blessed to be able to be in this position to work with this gear that I first started working with 6 years ago. I would have never thought that brand would be coming to me and asking me to make content for a new launch of a new product for a new camera. I remember when the Z5 version 1 came out, I was there for that, and now being involved in the version 2 release, I think that was just crazy to get that email, but then to be involved in the sort of inner workings of all that. So if you guys have got any questions about that, please let me know. I'll answer as much as I possibly can. Always an open book on any of those types of things. And I think that I posted a bit of a behind the scenes YouTube video the other day about working and creating that piece of content and how much went into creating that Instagram video to hopefully give people an insight, because it's not something that I saw a lot of and didn't realize it was something that people actually did or didn't even know how that process works. So if you've got questions, please do let me know. I'm always happy to help as many people as I can. In closing out this episode, let's talk about another thing that I'm doing in my business. And because we're creatives and we can't just control everything and not take on too many projects, you guys may have seen that I'm doing a photography camp in early May. That's quickly coming up in 3 weeks' time. I launched that in March. I've got 12 other photographers coming along to a camp. We're doing a 2-night camp here in Victoria, Australia. having a camp with other photographers. We're going to do like 4 or 5 different photo shoots over the course of 2 days, just hang out, do a couple of talks, just some classes as well. We're going to do an editing class as well as sort of how to sort of run your business as well over the course of 2 days, and just let people hang out. I think there's a big space for that in this industry. And in any creative field, there's been a high demand, and every time I talk about it, I get so many people asking about it because people want to do in-person events. I think online's been great, and I love the access that you get online. And I've spoken to every podcast guest that I've ever had on that I'd love to have a podcasting studio and have them in and have this conversation in person. But the access that online grants me has been incredible to get so many different people on the podcast and speak with so many wide variety of different people that I wouldn't be able to get if I had an in-person podcast or Instagram content. For that example, like my audience is all over the world, and I wouldn't have been able to have that audience if I didn't have online. But also in-person events, I think are so rewarding. And if you have never been to any in-person event, I think whether that be just like an hour-long talk or a 3-day camp, whatever it may be, in-person events are really where I think the community really does sort of shine, because you get to meet all these bunch of different people. As creatives, we often just are in our office at home. We don't go out there in the world much and talk to other people, and being able to get out there, speak with other people in your industry and sort of learn from them, even if they're not sort of directly in your area or in anything that you do. I think just having those conversations with creative people is so great. And that's why I do this podcast, right? I talk with creative people that aren't just photographers, because I think that everyone's just so interesting and everyone has a story. And I think being able to talk to them about a bunch of different things is so cool, and hear their story of how they've sort of come up and hear how it relates to me and how I can do things a bit differently and what sort of their offerings are and what I'm offering and a whole bunch of different things. And having those conversations is always really cool and steps you outside your own personal comfort zone. I think that's what it's all about. And so I've designed this camp to be that. I've designed the camp to sort of bring people together. Again, starting small, starting with 12 people. The first camp, I think I got over like 30 applications in the first day for people to come. Had to get it down to 12, and then decided that we'll just close it there because we're all staying on site. I've sort of booked out this whole sort of camp retreat. We're all going to stay in the one place. Everyone's got their own sort of room. We're going to stay there. And so planning for that has been super exciting as well. Trying to get people in to take photos and give people opportunity to build their photography experience. But again, it's as much about being able to meet other people in the industry as it is about building photography skills. I think the real in-person part of it is important, that we actually meet and have those conversations and have those talks and hear from other people and hear that, hey, I'm struggling with the same thing you're struggling with. It might not be just me. I might not be the only person that's having these struggles in the industry. So I wanted to put it out there to you guys of like, if you're in a creative industry, why don't you start having in-person events? So many people were like, I announced this, that I was in Victoria and it's coming up in like 2 months' time. And so many people from all over the world were saying, we wish I had this where I was from. I wish they had this where I was. And we hear about people in the States all the time. And if anyone's in the States, you guys have a huge advantage of having these types of events all the time, all over the States as well. And I kind of see these type of big events, big workshops being run. And I'm like, I sort of wish that we had more of that in Australia. And I'm like, why can't I start that? And then I hear from people from all over the world thinking, I wish I had this where I was from, and I can't. And I think, I should go there and go here and try to host all these things, but I can only do so much, right? So if you're somewhere, if I don't care what industry you're in, I just know that there is a demand for this stuff. And some people may say it's weird. Some people may say, I don't want to hang out with anyone in person. Again, those people aren't your audience. That's okay. We're not trying to get to those people. I've got 12 people at this thing. What would it take for you to host something, even for a 3-hour event for an afternoon, to be able to get 12 people along? What would that take for you? But how much interest would there be? I think there'd be a lot. So have a think about that. I think that that's something that I'm going to be doing much more of moving forward. I'm not going to spoil any upcoming events that I could be having after this one. If this one's a success, we'll be definitely iterating on the next one, and I'm already planning for the next one as we speak. I won't tell you guys where it is, but we're going to be planning for the next one, and I think it's going to be super exciting because, again, I've got so many people asking for these types of events, and I don't ever see these being a bad thing. And you could probably go to 8 different events from 8 different sort of people, and they'll all be completely different. and I'd happily sign up to as many as I could get my hands on. I just don't have access to a heap here, even where I am in the world. So I think everyone should be jumping on that bandwagon of getting out there, going and taking advantage of any possible in-person event that they possibly can, because we get so much out of it, and it's more about the connection I find in the creative industry than anything else, than any skill we'll ever have. Like, I've learnt so much more from talking to other people on this podcast, but in person as well at other events that I've gone to online, speaking to them about the way they do things. And I think, oh, I could do something like that. I could do something along those lines. Oh, I'm a lot more advanced than I thought I was. I could do this, that, and the other. And having those conversations just clarifies a lot of things, if nothing else. So definitely get out there. Having connections in the industry is so important. And like I said in last week's episode, be comfortable to sort of reach out to someone online. Be comfortable to put yourself out there online. Send that a message to someone else who's in your area and ask just to hang out. Ask them to catch up, hear about their experiences. A lot of people are open books. There are going to be some people that are closed off, but you'll always have that, and that's always going to be a chance. Again, if you want to ask me anything, feel free, and I'm always open and happy to talk about anything that I've been doing, because I think it's so important that we share that information around, and we only grow from there. And I'm not scared about someone having this idea as their own in their own part of the world. I don't even care if it's here in Australia. I'll probably turn up and apply to be a part of your event as well, because I think that these things are so important in our creative industry. So that's where I'm going to leave today's episode, guys. I'm super excited to be planning for a bunch of these different things, and hopefully you'll see them sort of come to light and see them grow over time, and hopefully we can do a bit of a recap episode after we're done. I heard from a friend of the podcast a couple of weeks ago, Andrew Kia. He's running some content creation classes over in the UK in person as well for him, which is very exciting. And I spoke to him about having him back on the podcast to talk about that experience and what that was like, because I know that for him that was very kind of daunting to actually get out there and actually teach that in person. Again, something that when he came on the podcast last year, spoke about, had only just started at the start of last year, and is now at a point 12, 13, 14 months after it, is now actually teaching classes, and people are, I think he had 15 people at each class, and they were all coming and turning out in person just to be there and hear him talk about his journey and about how he does things. And I think that's crazy. But if he would have held himself back, he would have never got there. So I put the call out to him. I want to get him back on the podcast again, and we're going to talk all about that. So maybe after the camp's done, we'll talk all about that, and hopefully spark a bit more interest in you guys and launching your own things, because I think that's so important. But I don't want to preempt that. But hopefully, if you guys are friends or talking to Andrew, make sure you slide into his DMs and say to him that we need to make that podcast happen if that's something that you're interested in. Or do let me know, if there's anyone else out there you want me to talk to about their experiences in anything to do with creativity, but always interested in people putting themselves out there and starting new things and sort of going out above, because I think that is where all the growth really happens, is making sure that we're getting ourselves outside our comfort zone. You never know what could come from that. If you guys did enjoy this episode, I would really, appreciate it if you could leave us a rating or review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It really does help get the show out to a bunch of other people. And we've had a lot of growth on the show recently over on YouTube, which has been very exciting as well. So if you're over there tuning in to the video version, or if you're having a listen to it on YouTube Music, do leave me a comment on this video or on this episode and let me know what you thought about it. Let me know who you'd like me to get on next time as a guest. I've got a couple of exciting guest episodes coming up in the next couple of weeks. I have planned more, so I promise I'll be back with a guest episode next week. But do let me know who you guys want to hear from, because I'm always excited to take suggestions from you guys. I know that I've got a lot of people that I'm really interested to speak to, but if you guys have got someone as well, I know I've had a few people. I know whenever I get a few messages from a few different people about the exact same person, I'm like, look, I have to reach out to them, because clearly they're someone that people want to get on the show. So if you've got someone, do let me know, and I'm sure that someone else will have that same request as well. Would love to hear from you guys. But again, I will hopefully speak to you guys all again next week. Hey Mike.